All right, you can start my time. It's good to be before you again tonight for the second affirmative of the evening. Appreciate Brother Hayes for coming all the way out. Brother Hayes talked about getting into the Greek and convoluting things with the Greek, and somebody showed him some stuff out of the King James. Well, I know it's kind of a colloquial phrase. If the King James was good for Paul and Silas, it's good enough for me. But Paul didn't write the King James. Paul didn't write in English. He wrote in Greek. Brother Hayes can say what he wants to about using Greek words and Greek dictionaries in this debate, but he certainly had no problem quoting a lot of Greek in his book. If you've read his book, there's a lot of Greek, a lot of misused Greek, but there's some Greek. So he brought up A.T. Robertson and what A.T. Robertson said about 1 Corinthians 11. When I quoted Bauer Danker and A.T. Robertson, I quoted them in how they defined a word, not their commentary on what a passage meant. And I can tell you right now, A.T. Robertson was a Southern Baptist. He certainly did not teach that a veil was a required covering. He didn't believe anything remotely close to what Brother Hayes teaches. He taught that it was something that was cultural. So just keep that in mind. I do want you to turn in your Bibles. Maybe I should have worded my question a little differently. I think Brother Hayes is parsing words because he knows the implication of the question. Luke chapter 11, verse 11, Jesus said, "If a son shall ask bread of any of you that is a father, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a fish? Will he for a fish give him a serpent?" So I asked him in Luke 11:11, Jesus' hypothetical question describes a father who gives his son a serpent and not a fish. Maybe I should have said would give his son a serpent and not a fish. But the point is, what Jesus was talking about hypothetically was a father who would give his son one thing and not another. And that's going to mean something later in this debate as we go on. So I do want to look at what we talked about in the last speech and then just continue on from there. Chart 28. I showed you from the text of 1 Corinthians 11:15 that for a woman to be uncovered is one and the same as the one shaven. As a matter of fact, that is how the New King James translates it. I showed you a bunch of translations that also confirm that. Brother Hayes even answered that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12:11, the Spirit who gives the one the word of wisdom is the identical Spirit. I'm going to show you that it's the same word there also. I want you to notice from Thayer's edition of Weiner's Grammar of the Idiom of the New Testament, page 150, he says in the New Testament, ha-atos, the same, takes after it a dative of the person when it denotes the same, identical with, as in 1 Corinthians 11:5. So what we're talking about here is something that is identical, two things that are identical to one another. And the only way to be uncovered can be identical with being shaven is for the covering material to be that which can be shaven. Chart 29, 1 Corinthians 11:5, Paul said, for a woman to be uncovered is one and the same with being shaven. Notice that Paul also used this one and the same phrase in 1 Corinthians 12:11, where the King James renders it one and the self-same Spirit. That is the identical Spirit. Chart 30. I want you to notice that in both passages, Paul used the identical terms, one and the same. 1 Corinthians 12:11, Paul wasn't saying that the Spirit who gives to one the word of knowledge or a word of wisdom is simply comparable to the Spirit who works miracles. Paul was saying it's identical. It's the identical Spirit that gives all the gifts. One and the same, the identical Spirit. I even asked in a question, check the box if true, leave blank if false. 1 Corinthians 12:11, the Spirit who gives a word of knowledge is the identical Spirit. Brother Hayes said that's true. It's one and the same. 1 Corinthians 12:11 means identical Spirit. Well, Paul used the same language, one and the same language in 1 Corinthians 11:5, just one chapter previous, describing an uncovered woman as being one and the same or identical with being shaven. It is a false antithesis to say that a woman who doesn't wear a veil is identical with being shaven. The only way that a woman being uncovered can be one and the same or identical with being shaven is for the covering material to be something that can be shaven, and that's hair. Chart 31. So we talked about the fact that Paul made this argument of logical conclusion. If a woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. And shorn doesn't simply mean to cut the hair without reference to length, like trimming the split ends. Shorn, or the Greek word kairo, means to cut the hair short. Notice how the lexicons define the word kairo. Abbott Smith Manual Lexicon, to cut short the hair, shear a sheep, have one's hair cut off. Chart 32. J.H. Bass, Greek English Lexicon, says kairo, to cut off, shear, shave. Chart 33. Bauer Danker Lexicon, kairo, shear a sheep. Middle, cut one's hair, have one's hair cut. Now, friends, you know that when it's talking about shearing a sheep, you don't mean that you cut the tips of the wool without any regards to length. Shearing a sheep means cutting the wool short. Edward Robinson, Greek English Lexicon, kairo, to shear, to clip. For example, a sheep, specifically the head, to cut off the hair. Chart 35. So when Paul used the word kairo in 1 Corinthians 11:6, he wasn't talking about simply trimming the hair. He was referring to cutting the hair short or cutting it off. As a matter of fact, that's the way the word is translated in many Bible versions. Thayer's Lexicon says to shear a sheep, to get or to let be shorn. Absolutely of shearing or cutting short the hair of the head. Chart 36. Zodiades' Complete Word Studies Dictionary of the New Testament. Kairo, to shear, especially to shave the head. Then on 1 Corinthians 11:6, he said it indicates cutting the hair very short. Now, Brother Hayes actually agrees with this. He agrees that the word shorn means to cut the hair short, not simply to trim the hair without any length. I want you to notice from page 37 of his book, he explains 1 Corinthians 11:6 as, for if the woman appears without her head veiled, let her also cut off her hair. But if it be a shame for a woman to have shortly cut hair, or hair shaved with a razor. So even Brother Hayes understands that kairo isn't simply talking about trimming the hair. It specifically describes cutting the hair short. As a matter of fact, in his YouTube video, the head covering identified and enjoined, Brother Hayes says that the word shorn means to crop off close to the skin. And he goes on to say that there's not much difference in cropping it all off and shaving it off. I can play the video if we need to. So, Brother Hayes, when the Bible says shorn, it's not just talking about trimming, it's talking about cutting the hair short. And he agrees with that. So, in other words, if a woman simply trims her hair, Paul said, if you're going to do A, you might as well do B, which is more severe. And since B is a shame, don't even do A. He said, if you're going to trim it at all, then you might as well crop it off close to the skin. But since it's a shame for a woman to be cropped off close to the skin or shaven, don't let her cut it off at all. That is a valid antithesis. It has equal relationship on both sides. We're comparing one act to an identical yet more severe act. The more severe act of cropping the hair off close to the skin. And in order for the argument to be valid, the material covering must be that which can be shorn or shaven, which is hair. So I want to talk more about uncut hair. 1 Corinthians 11:15 says, if a woman has long hair, it's a glory to her. In English, we think of this as a verb and a noun, long hair being a noun, but in Greek that is not the case. The entire phrase, have long hair, is translated from one Greek verb, kamao. Kamao in 1 Corinthians 11:15 is a present active verb in subjunctive mood. This is referred to as the progressive present tense. When a progressive present tense verb is used in the subjunctive mood, it denotes a continuous action. Daniel Wallace, Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics, page 518, says that the progressive present normally involves continuous action. Bill Mounts, Basics of Greek Grammar, page 289, calls this the present continuous subjunctive. In other words, kamao, or have long hair, in 1 Corinthians 11:15, is talking about a woman allowing her hair to continuously grow long. The only way for a woman to allow her hair to continuously grow long is for her to have uncut hair. Kamao refers to the natural, uncut length of hair. Ladies, listen. If you allow your hair to grow without cutting it, it doesn't matter if it comes to your shoulders, it's long hair. It doesn't matter if it comes to the middle of your back, it's long hair. It doesn't matter if it drags your tracks out behind you, it's long hair. Have long hair is not a number on a tape measure, but it refers to a woman allowing her hair to continuously grow without cutting it. Chart 40. Bauer-Danker Lexicon defines kamao as wear long hair, let one's hair grow long. Thayer's Lexicon, chart 41, says to let the hair grow, have long hair. Chart 42. Dr. Friedrich Friesike, who was a German scholar of the Greek papyri, he stated that the verb kamao means to wear one's hair uncut. His work is cited by Little and Scott, Bauer, and Moulton and Milligan. Chart 43. And then Lou and Nita explain in their definition of kamao in 1 Corinthians 11:15 that in a number of languages it may be necessary to translate kamao as to let one's hair grow long or not to cut one's hair. So the idea from 1 Corinthians 11:15 is that if a woman allows her hair to continuously grow long, then it's a glory to her. Remember, according to 1 Corinthians 11:15, it's a woman's long hair that is given to her for a covering. Verse 13, the climax of all that Paul was talking about. He said, is it proper that a woman pray unto God uncovered? And you know how he answered that rhetorical question? With the statement about hair. Hair. A woman's hair has been the subject throughout the entire discourse. For a woman to be uncovered is identical with her to be shaven. The only way for that to be a valid antithesis is for the covering material to be something that can be shorn or shaven, and that's hair. So, Paul, the climax of all of it, 1 Corinthians 11:13, is it proper that a woman pray unto God uncovered? He answered that by saying, does not nature teach you that if a man has long hair, it's a shame unto him? But if a woman has long hair, it's a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. And that verb, have long hair, refers to uncut hair, to allow the hair to continuously grow. So once again, my proposition is proven to be true. The scriptures teach that a woman's required covering